Welcome to the final 2 days of our Easter stitch along. I love saving the text for last because it gives us a chance to slow down, not just to focus on neat stitching, but to reflect on the meaning of these words as we work. Before we begin, check that your fabric is nice and taut in the hoop. If there's any sagging, tighten it now, not in the middle of stitching. Adjusting your fabric mid-text can lead to wobbly letters, and we want our words to be crisp and clean. For today's stitching, we'll be switching back to our size 5 needle, and our thread color will be 159. We'll also be using 3 strands, and once again, we'll be using a back split stitch to embroider the words in and alone. Stitching text can be very intimidating, so please be sure to take your time. Since we're working with straight text here versus the cursive that we'll be working on tomorrow, you want to make sure that you're always bringing up your floss at the baseline of your letter. So that's the baseline right here. This keeps your stitches even and helps maintain consistent tension throughout your stitching process. So let me show you how to do it. So I'm going to start here at the bottom of the eye, and I'm going to be making 3 stitches in a vertical direction. I know that seems like not many, but I've noticed that when I do 2 stitches on a vertical letter, I just don't like it as much. It just doesn't seem to have enough definition for me. So there's our first one. We won't be splitting quite as far into it just because there's only so far we can go. 2 and our third. All right, so we have that letter I done, and we're just going to pretty much do the same thing right here on this N. It's going to look a little different when we do this diagonal line here, but this first horizontal line here and the second one here will look just the same. All right, so as we come to this diagonal line, there are 2 options you have depending on just how thick your floss is laying. Sometimes it lays a little thicker for others. You can either just go right at the top of where you left off, this very tip, so you aren't really splitting in the middle of that last stitch, you're splitting at the very top. Or what you can do, and this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to kind of slide my needle almost under here and try and go in that spot, almost like I'm sharing that last hole that we just had. And sliding under will just help it not be quite as thick if your floss is already a little bit thicker on that side. All right, so as I finish this in, I'm going to tie it off and then I'm going to start down here, start my floss again and start on the A. All right, so this line down here might feel a little more complex, but it's really not that much different, only because there are some more letters that aren't quite as vertical as the letters I and N were. And so that's why it might feel a little more complicated, but really it's not. Just stick with that baseline when you're able to. For letters like O, you're not going to be able to, but I'll show you that as I get to it. So I'm going to just create those 3 stitches here on this A. And before I actually do this next line over, I'm actually going to do the horizontal line and get that out of the way because it's easier to do it now before the floss is covering it up over here. I'm going to do a split here and do 2 stitches. Now I'm going to come back and finish this second half of the A. Now, you might be wondering why I'm not starting at the baseline here. The only reason I'm not is because I know when I get to that bottom letter, I'm still going to be pulling. All right, so as we get to this O, I like to do the bottom first. So I'm going to make one little flat stitch at the bottom. And then just work my way around. All right, so that is it for today. Take your time and enjoy the process, and I'll see you tomorrow for our final stitches.